Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission General Session for this Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. Before we get into our business, note that we do have a couple of public comment periods, one at the beginning of the meeting on an agenda item, as well as general public comment on any other topic that you wish to speak about at the end of the meeting. If you wish to give public comment in either time period, you have up to 3 minutes to provide remarks. I do ask you to complete a public comment form at the back of the room and bring that to our clerk or deputy clerk over there on the end. And when it's your time to speak, I will call you up. Please provide your name and home address on those forms, but note that I will not be sharing your home address nor asking you to share your home address publicly. That will be kept private. When it is your time, you have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks. Please refrain from any commentary from the audience and take advantage of the public comment periods that are available. Before we get into our business, we do have prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to be led in prayer by our Vice Mayor German this evening. If you wish to join us for either the prayer or the Pledge of Allegiance, I do ask that you can stand if you're so able to do so and join us. Thank you.
All right, let us bow our heads. I'm going to read from you from Psalms 86:15. But thou, O Lord, art a God full of compassion, gracious, long-suffering, and plenty in mercy and truth. Let the reading of the words and the doers heed to that word. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we pray. We ask that you allow us to conduct a meeting in truth and compassion for the city of Muskegon. We ask that each and every one of us take a approach of guidance from your wisdom that you've given each and every one of us in our unique ways that we represent this city. We ask that you continue to allow us to prosper and bless those and watch over the homeless. Bless those who do not have, and allow us to make decisions to make a way for each and every one in this city to grow. With that being said, we ask in the name of Jesus that you protect everyone, protect the city, the firemen, the police department, the children, and most of all, Father in heaven, we just ask that you look over us and give us grace and mercy, that your Son, Jesus Christ, has shedded his blood on the cross. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Vice Mayor German. Okay, may we have roll call, please?
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Here.
Vice Mayor German,
Here.
Commissioner Gorman, here, Commissioner Emery,
Here.
Commissioner St. Clair.
Here.
Thank you. We are here. Before we get into public on agenda items, again, you have an opportunity to speak. Please fill out a form and indicate which topic you're speaking on. And I'll call you when it's your turn. Also, we'll have phone-in comments. So keep it, if you're watching at home or on live stream, keep an eye out for that phone number that's going to be scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Before we get into that, though, I do have a little bit of recognition or honor for Ann Mish, our Muskegon City Clerk, coming from the Muskegon County Airport Manager, Ken Efting, in recognition and honor of our clerk's assistance with that event, some last-minute planning and support with regard to food trucks and the like. And so he did share this presentation for you, and also on behalf of the Commission, I want to express our gratitude for the work that you do, not only for our city, but in coordination and collaboration with our neighboring municipalities and organizations. So thank you, kudos, and I'll come on over here and give it to you. All right. Now to public comment. Let's see. Agenda items. First, we got Cheryl Wittenberg joining us from the NIMS neighborhood, speaking on the Shoreline Drive Road Diet Pilot Study.
Oh, we're going to address that one first. I don't really have a great deal at this time in regard to the second phase. The first one was extremely painful. I do have a question in that what was noted, I believe in the newspaper, was that in phase one, there wasn't a great deal of deterrent or problem with Phase 1, even though it was noted as well that there was a problem, but it was downplayed as to how it really affected everyone. Everyone I spoke with was very affected, and they were very annoyed. And I find it very difficult to understand how we're going to have all of these new subdivisions, and we're going to narrow the road by a lane. It just is not practical. That's all I really have on that at this time, till we get into the middle of it. Oh, I do have one question. When is this going to, or are you going to address that today?
So I suspect, it is on our consent agenda, but I suspect a member of the commission will be pulling it from the consent agenda so that we can have separate discussion and deliberation and a vote on it. But that will be up to my 6 fellow commissioners in terms of pulling it from the consent agenda for that to happen.
Okay.
But if not, then even if it's on the consent agenda, I'll get that
Okay,
that clarified before we vote on the consent agenda.
all right, thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Wittenberg, and I know you'll be returning at the end as well. So I'll hold your public comment form. And then we have Mr. Ray McLeod joining us from the City of Norton Shores. Welcome, sir. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you. I'm representing the Muskegon County Bicycling Coalition this evening. And I just wanted to mention or talk about the bike lane or the bike trail relocation on Ryan's property there, that the quitclaim deed swap there. We know from the beginning that there's been talk about how the bike trail would be changed. And from the beginning, Ryan has assured us that it was going to be improved and better and more beautiful. And we also know since the beginning that there's been no plan for it. There's been nothing on paper on any of his diagrams that showed what the plan would be. And now, with the proposal that we see today on paper, we see 2 added 90-degree turns and 2 added sharp turns. Certainly not improvements by anybody's stretch of the imagination. I am 100% certain that Ryan has done all of his due diligence, making sure that all of the work for the marina, for the 44-foot boats, there's plenty of turning space that's safe for the 44-foot boats in the water and on the trailers. I wonder if there's been any due diligence in regards to bike trail development and engineers in looking at this and seeing if this is best practice also. So what I would like to see is that item pulled from the agenda until there's time to have some bike trail engineers brought in and think that through. And any other parts of the bike trail that Mr. Lietzma is thinking about for that. I know he had good intentions and has good intentions for that bike trail for our community, and that it can be integrated with his beautiful properties development. And I know the city is proud of being now ranked so highly as one of the most bikeable cities in the state. And I know everybody has great intentions. This particular bike land swap doesn't indicate that that's going to happen with this. So I would just rather that get pulled from the agenda at this time until that can be thought through a little bit more. And then I'm sure Ryan's goal of having that become the most beautiful part of the trail, as he said numerous times in our meetings, can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing your perspective. All right. That's it for agenda items that have public comment forms. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on an agenda item that has not completed a public comment form? All right. We've got the phone number scrolling. So is there anyone that has phoned in that wishes to speak on an agenda item?
No, they have not, Your Mayor.
Okay. Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Are there any items that you wish to have removed for separate deliberation and vote?
I do, Mayor.
Vice Mayor German.
Yeah, 7C as in cat. And 7M as in Mary.
Commissioners, Commissioner Ramsey.
7 in.
Okay. Commissioner Emery.
7D,
Is that D or B?
D,
D.
as in dog. And 7H.
All right, any other items, commissioners? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 7C, 7D, 7H, 7M, and 7N. You can just say so moved. You don't have to repeat it.
So moved.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by Commissioner Gorman. Any questions or comments on the overall consent agenda that remains? All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. First up, we have 7D, 7C, Vice Mayor German, with regard to the GARE membership.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the form application to join the Government Alliance and Race Equity under GARE membership.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor German, supported by Commissioner St. Clair, to approve formal applications to join the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. Welcome, Deputy City Manager Leanne Mikesell. So this is your item that you brought to us. Could you
Yes.
report out, and then give Vice Mayor German an opportunity to ask any of the questions or give his thoughts on his
Yes.
motion?
Well, I'd just like Deputy Manager Mike Zell to enlighten the public on this program and how it's going to benefit the city of Muskegon and the intent and its purpose.
Sure. So the Government Alliance on Race and Equity was formed to address racial disparities in and recognizing that most of the systems that were put in place that and that continued racial inequity were put in place by governments. And so their goal is to work with governments to make changes to those systems, thinking that that is the place, kind of the ground zero, to make improvements. So, as all of you probably remember, we did join with a learning community of practice with Ottawa County, using the GARE outline and GARE materials. We finished that partnership with them, I'm not sure how many months ago that was. And so through that process, we had worked with you to put together an equity vision statement, and that's been adopted by this body and is included on our website. And we have started looking at the things that we can do within our government. So we had developed a core team, and that's a cross-functional team that's going to focus on this effort. We are re-engaging that team now that our relationship with Ottawa County has ended, and we want to formally join GARE as just the city of Muskegon instead of in partnership with Ottawa County.
Okay, a couple more questions there, Deputy Manager. Now, the resources that, if adopted for this program, who will have access to it? Would the public or just members of the government here?
That's a good question. I would imagine that it's available to the public. If you go to the website for the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, there are all kinds of tools there. There are lots of resources that are available to people. It will certainly be available to all of the staff.
Okay. And you mentioned also the disparities. There's a book out by Richard Rothstein, and I think me and Director Echo have talked about this. It's called The Color of Law, and it basically touches on a systematic system of local governments and governments, how they're purposely and designed to discriminate, segregate, and keep these type of disparities on marginalized people and groups. So I really think that this is a step in the right direction to have something in place. I've always advocated for, racial, equality, and that's across the board, whether ethnic groups or religion or sexual orientation. I think we have to really start to put things and policies in place, and hopefully this would be the start where, and then not saying that we haven't started, but the more that we have, the better, and I believe the outcome would be much greater.
Right, yeah, our goal is to review all of our policies, procedures, and practices to see how they are affecting racial disparities and then make changes to those, so
Yeah.
that's our goal.
Yeah, but thank you for
Sure.
that report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments at this time? So with our partnership having dissolved with Ottawa County, I'm imagining it may be related to the dissolution of the DEI office for the county. So we are taking the step to have our own membership in this organization. Are we going to maybe return the favor of welcoming people to partner with us as an exploratory phase like we did with Ottawa County? So perhaps any municipalities in Ottawa County that deserted, or Muskegon County that might be interested, are there opportunities for them to kind of partner with us just as an exploratory phase to decide if they want to then become full-fledged members?
We could certainly outreach to others in Muskegon County. The reason that our partnership with Ottawa County finished is it had just reached the end of what was planned. So it doesn't have to do with the dissolution of their DEI office, it just kind of coincidentally happened around the same time.
Okay.
But we were finished with the work that was planned for that partnership.
Okay.
So that was really kind of an exploratory phase, and some work being done by a consultant that was hired by Ottawa County to lead us through some of the GARE work. So we're now ready to focus on specific things within the city of Muskegon and make changes there. So I'm not sure about the timing for reaching out to others now because we've kind of moved past that exploratory phase. But I could see once we are starting to make some progress, reaching out to some of the other communities in our county and sharing with them the experiences that we've had and, trying to convince them that this is a good thing to do.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate you personally spearheading this initiative and bringing our organization along and engaging in that partnership. And we also appreciate Ottawa County's former administrator and their DEI office and director for welcoming us in that partnership and exploration. So thank you.
Yep, you're quite welcome.
All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up, item 7D, Land Bank Lot Purchase, Development Services Division. That is Commissioner Emery.
Oh, yeah. That would be me. Okay, I had to find it here. Okay. I move to approve application to Muskegon County Land Bank for purchase of 10 lots as presented for $35,000 and to authorize closing.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Emery, supported by Vice Mayor German. This is being led out by our Development Services Director, Jake Ekholm. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So this is an item we, as you'll recall, have already made one amendment to the infill housing pilot agreement with West Urban Properties in the city of Muskegon. Through further investigation on existing zoning and lot splits, we determined that we're going to come up short for our total number of contracted houses. As you'll recall, it's 100 total units. Approved by the commission in tranches, if you will, of 25 units apiece. We're in the middle or nearing the end of our second phase, so we're heading into the third phase. We've been working to cultivate a solid working relationship with our county land bank because they do have a large repository of vacant properties here in the city limits. And as we all know, I beat the drum all the time, but with our housing needs assessment, we need to kind of make sure we have opportunity to infill on lots of vacant property, and we're running out of our own. So these were identified between working with the city staff and West Urban as good candidates to infill, to fill out that pilot agreement as an exhibit and make sure between our lots that we plan to propose as an exhibit And these lots, we can get through that entire contracted agreement.
Thank you. Commissioner Emery, questions to lead out or comments?
I just was looking for, he gave it already, so just a little more explanation to it. As to why we're purchasing the extra lots when we've said that we have so many. So,
Fewer and fewer every day.
Yeah.
God, because we're getting them under contract for infill, which is
Right.
good.
Which-
Yes, so this is to add to that inventory.
so what is our plan as to what kind of housing we want to put in these lots?
These in particular, these
Yeah.
10 that we're proposing, so these would go into our, as I mentioned, our existing pilot agreement. Those have primarily been single-family residential rental stock for working wage families, is who we're primarily seeing as the tenants there. So in these lots, they are kind of spread throughout the city of Muskegon, which is the goal. We want to make sure that we're equitably impacting neighborhoods with new infill housing. But you'd see primarily single-family residential rental units on these.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Emery. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Director Eckham, we're purchasing this for $35,000, correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, now, and the phase with West Urban Housing, was we approved that for 100 lots. So how many homes has been built out of that 100?
We're just over 40, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so, and another concern, okay, we're purchasing them for 35,000, 10 lots. Okay, how much will the developer be buying these lots for? Will we recoup our costs?
So that's a good question, and I wanted to touch on that through a little bit more dialogue with you guys. So the only reason that we're having a higher than probably average purchase price from the land bank on these lots is because, as you'll recall, West Urban's agreement for infill rental housing is a pilot agreement, pilot standing for payment in lieu of taxes. And so the parameters of that agreement cap the property tax bill on each one of those units for a certain determinate period of time. And in the event that the property taxes exceed that, the city's responsibility is to undergird the difference with the economic development fund. So land banks have something called the 5 and 50 rule, which means effectively they get to collect half of the taxable value for 5 years after they sell a property to a private buyer. So it would be in their interest to sell properties to generate revenue. With that pilot, it throttles the amount of revenue that they can then collect because of the payment in lieu of taxes limiting the amount of taxable value. So this was an arrangement that we proposed to say, okay, we'll make you whole on the front end, because you're going to be foregoing some of the revenue from that 5 and 50 rule on the back end. As to the lot purchases, the agreement stipulates that they're purchased for a nominal fee, and then the developer has to take all the financial risk and financing to build the house. So we don't put any money into those houses, but we give the lots.
So basically, you're giving them these lots.
Yeah, and then we generate taxable value and new housing for the residents on the back end.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, but we're still not recouping the cost of that 35,000.
Not directly, but we will through
Yeah.
tax capture. Yeah.
Okay.
And it should be mentioned again that all of these lots are also in our citywide brownfield, and they're helping, because we don't have any upfront costs into them, they're helping to offset the lots that we construct ourselves, the houses that we construct ourselves and then sell at less than build cost. These units help subsidize our brownfield. That's why right now it's not quite updated, but our latest numbers show that we recoup our losses in brownfield in about 1.49 years. Tax collection years, which is extremely strong. That's outperforming what we anticipated, and part of it is because we included these lots in the brownfield.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. And we could always charge more per lot, but that cost then gets passed on to the total cost of selling the house and the buyer. So it goes against our other desire, which is housing affordability.
Right.
But as Director Eckholm so thoroughly and eloquently explained, we ultimately get paid back in the long run or short run with the strong performance of our brownfield scattered site TIF right now. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? Commissioner Ramsey.
Just again, thank you, Mr. Echolm. Great job. Housing is a crisis for all of us and our neighbors, and I know a lot of us won't understand how severe the crisis is until it knocks on their front door. So thank you for continuing to push each and every one of us and to educate our community about how important these projects are.
Thank you.
Indeed. All right, we are going to go to roll call then. Thank you.
Vice Mayor German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have item 7H, Morton Street reconstruction with our DPW and Commissioner Emery.
I move to approve the award of the Morton Street reconstruction project to Jackson Murky, contingent upon successful financial arrangements with CWSRF and DWRF programs, and authorize the clerk to sign the resolution.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Emery, supported by Commissioner St. Clair. Welcome, DPW Director Dan Vanderhyde.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. This is part of the item that we discussed last night. This is one of the 4 contracts associated with the SRF programs that we're intending to or asking for your permission to award tonight. And that will begin a process where we will sell bonds associated with these projects and perform the work next year. We received quite a bit of principal forgiveness associated with this program. We're very fortunate to receive about 2/3 of our money back through this program. The Morton project in particular is from Lincoln to Denmark. It's the reconstruction of Morton Street, and it includes new water main, new sanitary sewer, and a new street over the top of those 2 utilities. And we're recommending that go to Jackson Murky, and I'm happy to answer any questions related to this project or the program as a whole.
Thank you, Director Vanderhyde. Commissioner Emery.
Just for our neighbors, what is about the start time, the length of that it's going to take to do this?
Sure. So this project will not take the entire summer. We gave flexibility to the contractor to choose the best time during the construction season for them to perform the work. So as a part of our efforts this fall and winter to engage with the neighborhood, we will be working with the contractor to identify exactly when they plan to perform the work. I apologize, I don't have the specific number of weeks that they're allowed in front of me this evening, but just based on the scope of the work, I would estimate that there's probably something like 4 months or so worth of work that they can, move within that construction period. And we'll know that ahead of time, but we don't know it at this time.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to let everybody have a heads up.
Yeah.
Getting some infrastructure replaced and some new roads going in.
Yes,
Too, so.
it's a wonderful thing.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner Emery. Commissioners, any other questions or comments on this item at this time? No? Anything else you wish to share with us at this time, Director Vanderhyde?
I do have some follow-up documentation relative to the discussion we had yesterday evening that I can share, but that has been sent to the commission, and so I'm happy to discuss that either tonight or some other time.
Okay, I have not. I do see that email now. I'm looking at it. I've not had an opportunity to review that yet. Commissioners, I don't know if you all have any questions on that right now. Commissioner Ramsey.
I don't have any questions. I want to say thank you, Dan, for letting us have a very candid and meaningful conversation about this last night, and for your quick turnaround and giving me exactly what I asked for. So thank you so much for your diligence and to put it back to us so that we can understand it and then share it better with our neighbors. Because the firmer grasp that we have, the less confusion and or chaos is created in our neighborhoods. So thank you for that. And when it comes back up for us to discuss again, I guarantee you I will have less questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. And thank you for that follow-up, Director Vanderhyde, from yesterday with that additional information.
And we'll make sure to get that on the debt fee website for our neighbors to review as well.
Excellent. and they can access that through the Connect Muskegon portal. So they go to shorelincity.com, and at the very top, there's a link to Connect Muskegon, and there we'll have the information that you're looking for with regard to the debt service fees.
Yes, it's not
Okay.
quite live yet, but there will be a website there, and we will have in that water bill message area, we will have the website address as well for anyone who needs that.
Also on the water bills. Okay, excellent. Great job. Thank you, Dr. Vanderhyde. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood, Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor German.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up, item 7M, Shoreline Drive Pilot Phase 2, DPW. Vice Mayor German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize staff to spend up to $56,000 for the implementation of the second phase of the Shoreline Drive traffic pilot, including authorizing staff to enter into a contract with giving them a brake, safety, and berries greenhouses for $20,890 and $14,000 respectively.
Support.
Motion by Vice Mayor German, supported by Commissioner Ramsey, being led out by our DPW Director.
Thank you. This is formalization of Phase 2 of the Shoreline Drive pilot study. We discussed this at the June work session and went through a myriad of options of ways to implement the second phase of the pilot. We have assembled these two contracts in order to put up the traffic control devices and the landscaping that were discussed at that meeting. And then we've got some additional contingency amounts there listed that we would be working with community partners to prepare those imagination stations as we discussed it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor German.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor. Director Vanderhyde, thank you. I just kind of want to reflect back on Phase 1. And some questions was asked. I asked a question about data that was gathered for this road diet last year. And could you just kind of enlighten the public on what was said, what did the data convey, how was the data used, and how is it going to benefit the community?
Sure, be happy to. So overall, what we saw in Phase 1 was what we're calling mixed. The specifics were that we did see a reduction in the speed on Shoreline Drive, as we hoped and expected. We did see a small increase in travel time through that corridor on the order of seconds for most users. We did see a very small increase in the speeds on Muskegon and Webster. And so we would like to, that's essentially the reason for Phase 2, is to gather more data to determine to what extent those pieces of data are confirmable, repeatable, and also to address some of the concern that the data was obtained at different times of the year. So this would be a goal of having July and July data to compare, as well as to see how what was, at least staff feels in general, not a poor performing study. It was we felt a good indicator of how we think the road could function in the future. We wanted to see that happen under the busier tourism and event season as well.
And what was the cost for that actual study?
For Phase
For
1?
Phase
or
1.
For Phase 1, the traffic control devices were about $25,000. The engineering services associated with the data collection and the preparation of the report and so forth, specific to the Phase 1 study, were, I think, another $15,000 or $20,000.
So we're looking at about 45,000.
And just to give a caveat with regard to what transpired last fall is that we had already road maintenance that needed to be conducted, and so we piggybacked on the road maintenance project to collect data. So I wouldn't necessarily count those two numbers as collectively being part of our study. I think it'd be the latter number specific to the data collection. Which, what did you say that was approximately?
I don't have the number in front of me, but I believe the portion associated with the phase one, data collection and report preparation efforts was about $20,000.
About 20,000. Okay. So the other stuff was traffic control that needed to be done with regard to road maintenance regardless. So, okay. I just wanted to have that caveat and clarification.
Okay, and I just asked one other question. Others
Vice
commissioners
Mayor.
may have questions as well. Okay, now bringing it up to the present. Now we're here at phase two. What is the expected or expectation for this phase two project? And I see the price in there, and we're asking for a substantial amount of money to move forward. My concern is hearing from the public, which is so important because I like to get public input and engage the community and see what they think, and our taxpayers. So just bring us up to speed with this phase two project.
Sure. So we're asking for a total of $56,000 to implement the second phase, and those costs were discussed at the last work session. The goal of the second phase is to continue the traffic pilot under the tourism and event season, and to confirm the data that we received in phase one. I will say that it's important to remember that really what we're doing here is gathering data for a future conversation about Shoreline Drive. It's not intended to change Shoreline Drive in any permanent way. It's simply trying to confirm that the math that the computer suggests is true in real life, so that when we go to have those conversations about what the future of Shoreline Drive looks like, we have the data to back up some of the scenarios that might be talked about.
The state has run its computational modeling indicating that this could be conceivable, and they're asking us to provide real-world data and analysis to see if that reinforces their computational modeling. Commissioner St. Clair?
Thanks. So can you take us back a little bit farther and talk about what comes after the data is collected and what sort of timeline we might be looking at before, if the data comes back and everything looks perfect, to proceed with narrowing? What is the path from here to there, and what is the timeline on that?
Sure. We don't know a specific timeline to when any construction might happen, other than that I can say it would be years away. Our goal is twofold. One, to have this data available ahead of any efforts MDOT might make on their own to rebuild Shoreline Drive in its next iteration. Sounds crazy because parts of Shoreline Drive are 12 years old or so, but MDOT plans in terms of decades, and so they might begin planning for what the next version of Shoreline Drive looks like within the next 10 years, for example. Separately, the study and the data that comes from it, we hope would also drive a conversation locally at the city level. And there are funding sources out there, specifically within the bipartisan infrastructure law, that would help fund those conversations. They would allow us to extend the conversation to Moses Jones Parkway and to have a broader re-envisioning of what the waterfront of Muskegon, in particular from western to western or to the spiderweb, would look like. So, we're trying to get ahead of any efforts MDOT may make, as well as drive a conversation with the community about what we all would like Shoreline to look like.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, so the goal of this is to collect data so that we can create a long-range plan with lots of community involvement and lots of discussion about what we do with our street as a community, rather than having MDOT tell us this is what you are going to do because it's our road. Is that accurate?
Very accurate, yes.
And this is nothing that's going to happen next year, probably even in the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know that I would commit to any specific time frame other than to say that it's many years away.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. Great job. So many questions. Director Vanderhyde, I want to highlight a couple things and say thank you for, first of all, your continued work to this project, because we don't know what we don't know. And so that's what we're doing here, is figuring that out. And while there are phases of this project, we know that they all come together like a big algebraic expression to create one outcome. And so that those variables will change. And I want to thank you for revisiting, listening to our neighbors, and knowing that we need to launch another pilot, another aspect of this pilot during a busy season. It's completely valid. Thank you for sharing tonight that there was only a small increase in the time that it takes to traverse the road from one end of Western to the other, and that it's mere seconds. And I'm excited to hear that you are aware of the, although minimal, amount of speed increase through our neighborhoods, that you guys are looking at that as well. I was excited to hear you talk about the federal funding, especially through those Reconnecting Communities dollars that we're looking to do, because as Commissioner St. Clair shared so eloquently, that if we want to look at addressing what is, in my opinion, the atrocity that is Moses Jones, we know that we have to get this done first, and to have the east side of our downtown be better connected to the lake is my ultimate goal. Period. I don't understand how you can literally see it from your backyard and you can't get to it, because there's an entire country between you and it, a country of asphalt that is very unsafe. So thank you for this work. And I want to encourage neighbors to rely on the fact that we don't know what we don't know. And so while we're figuring it out, maybe everybody just calm down a little bit. Because we'll get there. And like the commissioner so eloquently said, this is not happening tomorrow or the next day. And that when it does happen, we'll all have a part of that conversation, because we all get to choose. So thank you, Dan, to you and your team. Thank you, Mr. Manager, and to my colleagues.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Commissioner Emery.
Yes. So the total price for this study, phase 2 of the study, is $56,000, or is it $56,000 plus the $20,890 and $14,000 to berries?
Good question. No, it is the total that we anticipate spending to meet what we talked about at the work session is $56,000. There are 2 specific contracts we're asking for award of this evening, but then we've got 2 miscellaneous items there that are within the manager's approval level that we just wanted to put on there so you were aware.
Follow up, Commissioner Emery?
Yes. Did we get bids on the decor of the shoreline? Or was Barry's the only one that we went to? And why?
We did go directly to Barry's. That was twofold. They are already downtown nearly every day working to maintain our landscaping there. And so we anticipated it would be reasonably priced, and they provided what we believe is a reasonable price to expand that to Shoreline Drive. It also allows us to work with them directly at the staff level, similar to what we're doing with the downtown efforts, and not add, a third or fourth contractor into the mix, depending on how you count it.
Okay, that makes sense. Another question?
Yes.
So it's $14,000 for 40 large flower pots. Are we purchasing those flower pots, or are we leasing them from Barry's?
So we are anticipating using many of the unused galvanized troughs that are downtown right now, and then Barry's has additional planters that they can supplement those with, that they're offering to essentially rent to us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor German.
Yeah. Director Vanderhyde, could you enlighten the public and the commission, and most of us know, what Shoreline Drive intended purpose was when that was created?
I can do my best. I was not here at the time, nor were many of us. I know Jamie Pesh in the planning department has done a lot of research into Shoreline Drive and Moses Jones and many of the projects that were done at that time. As I understand it, the intent was to make passage of traffic from the north of the county to the south of the county I guess we'll call it an easier trip, as well as divert traffic away to the extent possible from Muskegon and Webster and the downtown area of Muskegon. I guess I'll lead myself a little bit and just say that I think we can all agree that back in the late 90s when this idea was developed, there was a different view of Muskegon than what there is today, right? The downtown was an area to perhaps pass through, whereas we like to think it's a destination now. And I think there's something to be said for moving traffic around the lake. However, this is a combination of my own opinion and what I believe staff is intending to accomplish with this pilot effort. We're not sure that there needs to be, frankly, a highway to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And that's probably the first, I would say, direct answer that I've gotten to really make sense. Now, but given that pilot study from the first phase, what did it reveal? I know you said something about slowing traffic down and how, again, and spending that amount of money, and then we're asking for another $56,000. And the first study didn't show enough data to come to a conclusion for the study. I just find it kind of puzzling to spend another $56,000 on this pilot program. So I guess I'm just convince me. Give me something that would really make it convincing, because we don't have the data that would reflect on the whole outcome.
Sure. Well, I think probably the strongest argument I can make is that staff thinks it would be a shame to let an external agency such as MDOT determine what shoreline looks like for the next 50 years without the city having some say and some data to present a case to them that it could look different than it does today. Phase 1 of the pilot showed real results, but it showed results that supported the case either way. So some of the results showed that the speeds on Shoreline Drive were reduced, which is something that would increase safety on Shoreline Drive. However, it showed that the speeds on Muskegon and Webster were slightly increased, which would reduce safety on those roads. It showed a small decrease in travel time through the shoreline corridor, but in the context of, let's say, a trip from North Muskegon to Norton Shores, it was minuscule. And so the second phase of the pilot looks to...
Excuse me. It was what? I didn't hear you.
Minuscule. I mean, it was a second or two in the context of, the entire trip, right? I think the specific number was 10 seconds or something. So the second phase looks to clarify, has safety increased or decreased broadly, right? So we have increased safety on Shoreline Drive, decreased safety on Muskegon and Webster. So those are conflicting results, right? So the second phase looks to clarify which of those maybe is more accurate or repeatable. And then also, we heard a lot of feedback from the commission and the community that the time at which we performed the first phase, October, is a low traffic time in downtown. And so in order to confirm that data that there's a small increase in traffic time, we wanted to do that during a higher traffic period to see if that remains a small increase or if we could expect a larger increase during higher traffic times.
Okay, thank you.
And our desire to collect that data last fall in the lower traffic times, just to understand the impacts then in lower traffic times, and if it was a complete nightmare, we wouldn't be here considering an extension or second phase of it to collect in peak traffic times. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was a inadequate or deficient data. It was just data to move us to the next phase. And now we're here continuing to collect data, as Commissioner Ramsey indicated. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Until we collect that data to know. But I saw that you had your hand, but before I go to you, Commissioner St. Clair, I want to go to Commissioner Hood. He hasn't had a chance to weigh in.
Well, I just like to thank the Vice Mayor for some of the questions that he asked, because there were questions that was on my mind also. Because I'm just not too excited about the change or the study, the second study. So, having that said, that's all. I mean, you answered a lot of questions that I had, and the Vice Mayor had asked them already. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. Commissioner St. Clair.
Thank you. Director Vanderhyde, you were deeply polite in your description of why Shoreline Drive was routed around the city, and I'm just going to speak plainly. It was inherent racism. They directed traffic outside of Muskegon because people didn't want to drive through the city, and we see all along the corridor the effects of urban planning in that time frame has disenfranchised Muskegon Heights, it has disenfranchised downtown Muskegon, and it has disenfranchised the Jackson Hill neighborhood. And that was not an accident. It was very deliberate. This is an opportunity for us to look at, can we fix that? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it'll be an enormous nightmare and we'll have to go back to the drawing board and look at another way that we can try to undo some of that damage that was done. But I just want to speak really plainly to why this is important. And then, even if it was an innocuous thing, that it just made sense at that time to do that. Things change purposes all the time. The building across the street that Parkland owns used to be our fire station. Why isn't it our fire station anymore? Because it wasn't adequate for what the community needed. We built a new one that has been repurposed, and now it is another thing. I think it's really important for us as a community to be open-minded and flexible about opportunities to do better. And I think that this is one of those things that in 5 years, maybe we'll look back at that and think, man, what were we thinking? There's no way we could have done that. But we have to try to at least look at the data.
Indeed. Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. Just before I go to you again, Vice Mayor German, I wanted to give Commissioner Gorman an opportunity if she has a question or comment at this time. Okay. Vice Mayor German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair, for that comment. And you know the history, urban renewal in the 60s. As she stated, that highway divided downtown from the Jackson Hill neighborhood and others, and there has been very little investment in those neighborhoods. And we've had these conversations. Again, when you know better, you should do better. We're in a whole different time now. And as I stated earlier to Deputy Manager Mike Sell, when she talked about the racial equity program, and I mentioned the book, The Law of Color. That is a book that breaks down everything that we're talking about right now. And a lot of people may not know that, how local governments have designed purposely to divide neighborhoods and keep them disenfranchised. So when we talk about spending these dollars, for a pilot program, I get it. I see what you're saying. Nothing against you. But I just think we could use them in a more equitable way, more feasible way, how it can better serve the community and fix what's broken here. Because there's a system that systematically has really hurt other communities. And I think, with that being said, I think it needs to really be thought out and brought back to the commission in a way that it can benefit, these other neighborhoods. But not only that, use it for its purpose, what it's been put there for now, and that's to bypass the city. But if we can make it and tie down and have gateways to the downtown, I've said this before, these cities where it'll be easy for them to get down there, but that highway traffic, the damage has already been done. How do we fix that? I'm looking for solutions, not trying to band-aid a problem or look over a problem. Has to be solutions to what has been done to these communities. And this was before your time. Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. All right, Commissioner Ramsey.
I'm a little conflicted, Mr. Mayor. So I want to thank everyone for sharing their opinions and points of view tonight, and for specifically to Commissioner St. Clair. But where I'm confused, Vice Mayor, is that what we're talking about is literally identifying the opportunities to undo all of the things that have been done to those communities specifically. So this is not a Band-Aid, this is not a workaround, which we know, I hate that word from last night. This is an actual opportunity for us to see if we can fix some of the stuff that we messed up. Not we in this room, but we as the greater whole. This study is how we get there. And we know that if we're going to do anything else east of Lakeshore, meaning Moses Jones, because that's where a huge amount of this lies as well, MDOT will not even look at that until we provide due diligence that we've looked at the other areas of the city that we can control. And so while I'm not trying to argue your point with you, but I think that maybe you're missing the meat and potatoes of that, is that the point of this study is to figure out how we fix all of that. How do we better connect those neighborhoods, not only to the lake, but to us, to the part of the downtown that is booming and growing, so that they feel included and are shown that they have a space at the table, at this table. And again, I'm not going to belabor it, but I think that maybe we're fighting the same fight. We're just not communicating about it very well. So this study is going to show us if there's an opportunity for us to fix that. And if it doesn't, then we've spent some money, but guess what? At least we can say that we tried, and we know that now that is not the problem that needs to be addressed, and we can move on to the next one that we want to try to tackle. Because we have to take these systems apart. We have to dismantle them. We have to dismantle them piece by piece to figure out where we messed up, so that we can fix and move forward. And again, I'm not trying to argue with you. To hear what you say, I'm like, yes. So I think that there just needs to be some more understanding between us as colleagues, that we're all on the same side, trying to do that exact same thing.
Yeah, I think the tensions are in alignment, but maybe the how-to are differing a little bit, or not necessarily saying.
And also, words are confusing if they don't have a standardized meaning. So how do we standardize language around these things so that our neighbors know what we're talking about, so that we know what staff is talking about, and so that staff understands what we're sharing up here? Because we've got to share with both. All about communication.
Absolutely. So, I support us continuing to collect data and explore this opportunity, because I continue to support our original objectives with this, which was to improve pedestrian safety, and also vehicular safety. You're not crashing into things, hopefully, but to improve safety of the crossings along Shoreline Drive, and our other overarching goal of expanding and improving interconnectivity between our downtown and our lived communities with our waterfront, and our lived communities with our downtown, as has been shared. Jackson Hill and Angel have been separated by asphalt rivers that came out of urban renewal, which, as the book that you're referencing speaks to, and we've seen other data analysis to indicate that urban renewal did create these infrastructure projects that separated communities and most harmed, marginalized communities. And so, as I've said in previous meetings, I am particularly interested in moving this forward so that we can then look at Moses Jones Parkway, because that is an egregious barrier between our marginalized lived communities and our downtown and our waterfront. And as has been stated, the state will not let us look at that until we look at Shoreline Drive and do this study and collect this data, and then we'll be able to move forward. Even if we don't move forward with Shoreline Drive, reconfiguration or narrowing, we'll be then positioned to move forward with looking at Moses Jones Parkway. There's no reason in my mind why we need 4 lanes in each direction separating that neighborhood from their waterfront and our downtown. So that's what I'm keen on moving forward. Also, while we're continuing to move this forward and explore it, this is not the end all be all. As staff also, we discussed this previously as a commission, that we're interested in reviewing those intersection repairs that were reflected in our Imagine Muskegon Lake plan as another way to improve safety and interconnectivity between our downtown and our neighbors with the waterfront. So we're going to be doing that in tandem with this, and next year when you're reporting back the data from this study and the analysis, we'll also be touching on the intersection repairs reflected in that IML plan.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, we've taken a look at that plan. We've I guess brought MDOT's attention to those intersection improvements as they were called out in the plan, and discussions with MDOT on their feelings about those is ongoing. So.
Okay, thank you. And I think we all recognize the community has legitimate concerns.
Absolutely.
About the impacts on their lives. They're legitimate concerns. We're not trying to dismiss this or discount them.
No.
They will be factored in as we move forward. But as part of that planning and those conversations is collecting that data and having that analysis that we can make data-driven decision-making at the same time. And I think our city manager wanted to jump in or add something. But Commissioner Ramsey, final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, and think about what you're saying, that if we can figure out that it costs someone 6 extra seconds to drive down that street, but we get to connect an entire marginalized population of our community back to being a part of what we do every day, it's worth the 6 seconds, right? So how do we look at the greater good? Now I promise I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Do you have one more thing? Okay. Mr. Manager.
A quick comment, and then I've got a question for Director Vanderhyde as a clarification point. So one of the things that I've asked folks when they come to me with this conversation is what's the purpose of a road? And I think there's multiple things that a road can do. Is it solely to get cars from point A to point B as quickly as possible, or is it to accommodate other forms of transportation? And so that's just a question that I ask when I have that conversation, and it usually ends up being a pretty productive one. But to Director Vanderhyde, say that the commission votes to approve this tonight, and then we move forward with it. We get a month in, and it's a disaster. What are our options?
So, certainly the items that you have before you are very easily removed from the roadway. They're simply traffic control devices, which are removed every day. The landscaping is designed in planters and would be easily removed. Some of the imagination station pieces, as we work with the community to develop those, for example, if there's any street art that were to happen, that might remain for some period of time, but on the whole, the pilot could be disassembled quickly if it were to go poorly.
Great question. We certainly want to be aware of that. Yeah. Another question that was asked during public comment was, when is this going to be starting? Do you have a timeline? I know it's mentioned here that at least with regard to the traffic control and data collection, that you'd like to get started as soon as possible this month. But what is your time? When are you targeting?
Sure. So we're working with the traffic control contractor. They're kind of the one that has to do the work first, and of course that will be the main component of setting it up. They believe that it will be the end of next week before everything is in place and it can be put in place on the roadway. So we'll be working over these next couple of weeks to get our feedback pieces in place and those types of things. So once it's up, we can receive the feedback that will, I'm sure, be coming in.
So ready placed or ready to place by the end of next week?
So they'll pre-stage, what they call pre-stage. So basically you'll start to see all the devices on the side of the road, but they won't be out in traffic yet. And once everything's out there and everything's ready to go, then they'll send a crew to pull all the devices out into the roadway in one day typically. And so as to the specific day that that will happen, they haven't committed yet, and we're working with them to identify one as quickly as we can. But they said that they anticipate we will be in their schedule in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Sounds like it's going to happen regardless, but I would maybe caution or just give my perspective of having the placement itself not happening until the week of the 24th of July. That's after bike time and after Rubber Road. The concern there is while we want to have high traffic, that's the target, that's a unique event, and the way these traffic control measures are going out, it could be easy for folks on motorcycles to weave in and out. And that could create safety concerns in and of itself, the way that it's being set up. So we'll still have plenty of high traffic events to include in our study and collect data on. And we got Unity Festival, which I think is the largest festival that is at Heritage Landing. We're going to have Irish Music Festival, because this is going to be continuing into September, correct? That we're going to be going into mid-September at least. So we'll be capturing that. And so there's a number of other high traffic events happening downtown, not to mention just the regular summer tourism traffic. So I would just, it sounds like it's going to already happen, placement, and we might start seeing things out there next week, but it may not actually get put out on the road till the week of the 24th, which I'm perfectly fine with if that's the case. And then, question, did you have a question?
Go ahead,
in
man.
that regard?
Yeah, after you. Yeah.
So the landscaping by Barry's greenhouses says $14,000 quote. In the motion, it references $14,000, but then it says $16,000 contingency, or $6,000 contingency. Excuse me. Is that's $6,000 contingency for just the Barry's greenhouse, or is that a $6,000 contingency for the whole project?
That is just related to Barry's greenhouse. I think we've nailed it down to the point that won't be necessary, but when I had to create the item, a couple weeks ago or so, we were still working with them to figure out exactly what the quote was going to include and where they were at. We're now much more comfortable that they've got everything in there that we planned for. So I don't think we'll end up spending that, but that was proposed to be contingency on the landscaping portion of the pilot, yes.
Were those like optional features or extra optional? Usually contingencies aren't, like that's 43%. And usually contingencies are not to that extent, and so.
Yeah, it was related specifically to two things: which pots we were going to use, whether the troughs or their rented pots and so forth, and then also making sure they were watering it often enough, and what that looked like in order to make it, nice landscaping, not just.
Yeah. We just need to be
Yeah. I guess if you want to.
okay.
Yeah.
So thank you, Commissioner Emery, for that question earlier, because it then prompted me to then double check our purchasing policy, which does, and so we need to acknowledge this if we're moving forward, because it is a deviation from our existing purchasing policy. And so I just wanted to acknowledge it, and the commission can decide, how to proceed. But that policy is, so for purchases between $5,000 and $24,999.99, a minimum of 3 written quotes are required. An award shall be made to the qualified vendor of offering the best value in the opinion of the division head and city manager. So that doesn't need to come to us. This did come to us, but I just want to acknowledge existing policy. So the commission can do as it pleases moving forward. But I just want to acknowledge that. Vice Mayor Sherman, you had a follow-up question?
Yes, a couple questions. And to Commissioner Ramsey's point and the mayor, you're right. We're looking at the same issue here and want to come up with a solution that will better serve the community and have a gateway for those communities to be able to come downtown. And due to past history, and the mayor touched on policies and practices, and I was just reading this here from the actual study from the GARE network. And it says, we know that systematic racism reaches every phase of life, lowering the lowering the life expectancy of communities of color and ultimately degrading all of our public goods. We know that government policies and practices at all levels has played a foundational role in creating and sustaining these outcomes. And this is what we need to do, is to try to come up with solutions to alleviate that. As for like funding, have we considered any type of state funding or grants to move forward with this phase 2 project?
We are not aware of any grants that would specifically support this phase 2 effort. However, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is an important step in a process that we think could position us to apply for and hopefully receive that Reconnecting Communities grant that the commissioner mentioned through the bipartisan infrastructure law. The city of Kalamazoo was recently successful in getting a large chunk of money through that program for a very similar effort, reducing the business loop through their downtown. So, that is not to say that, that grant program is a primary outcome, from this effort, but it is something that we think could be helpful as a part of that conversation piece between now and when there is money to rebuild Shoreline Drive someday.
Okay, thank you, Director Vanderhyde.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yep.
We're wrapping up here. I want to thank the commission for the many questions and the comments. This is a good dialogue and deliberation. Spent a good amount of time on this, both tonight and throughout this process, but I think it's important that we do that. This is going to be impacting our residents and also the residents of our neighboring municipalities, their lives on a daily basis for the duration of the study. So I think it warrants careful deliberation and challenging and prodding and probing and questioning. So I appreciate the dialogue this evening. And then one last thing I want to share just about Shoreline Drive is that, because it's been talked about sometimes as a pass-through, and it's just like, here's a quick way to get around the downtown. In my mind, business routes, and that's what it is, it's US Business Route 31. Business routes are intended to bring you to a commercial area or a downtown. It's to bring people from US 31, 96 to our downtown, not just to pass through it, but bring you to us. And we want to create an environment downtown that is welcoming and safe and hospitable and gives you convenient access to the many wonderful natural resources and public amenities that our city provides. So with that said, I'll go to roll call, please.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor German?
No.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're not quite done with the consent agenda. We have one more item on the consent agenda. All right. That is 7N, splash pad RFQ/RFP, request for quote or request for proposal with our DPW, Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes, I would like to motion to authorize staff to issue a request for qualifications for the replacement of the downtown splash pad.
Support.
A motion by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by Commissioner St. Clair. Good thing you didn't go anywhere. Director Vanderhyde, you're a popular person this evening.
Yes, Director Karczewski couldn't make it tonight, so I'm going to handle this one. This is one of those good news, bad news scenarios. So obviously the good news, the biggest piece of good news is that we were successful in receiving a Spark grant through the state's program earlier this year. We also were able to secure an additional donation from Howmet, which is the successor to Alcoa, the current named sponsor of the same area. However, the bad news portion is that the grant program, as the state developed the rules for after they issued the awards, was or is that we have to go through their already established design and bid process that they use for trust fund grants and land and water conservation fund grants, essentially the long established grant programs that the DNR administers. When we first went out for proposals on this project last winter, it was now, we were under the impression that the Spark program was going to be a less burdensome grant process, I guess I'll say. It didn't turn out that way. And the DNR, we've been working with the DNR since our award to try to get them to find a way to accept our prior proposal process. We weren't able to reach an agreement on that, and so we are going to have to go with a more traditional process. We're going to hire, someone to help us design a splash pad, and then DNR will approve those documents and help us bid those construction documents at that time. So it is unfortunately the main effect of it is that we are, I won't say stuck. We have our existing splash pad for one more year. We're very fortunate that DPW staff was able to get it running, and it seems to be running better this year than it was last. But the new one, we hope will be open in spring of 2024.
Thank you, Director Van Hoyt. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Vanderheide. I just wanted to, again, just have you highlight all of the great things that are happening around this project. And what I heard you just say is that the city of Muskegon and its staff, who does the great work in this town, like procuring dollars from private donors in the state of Michigan, is able to be nimble and pivot when faced with adversity. And so thank you to you and your staff for doing that and to bringing a great new splash pad downtown, even if it's a year off. This is great news to share. And to our partners at Howmet Alcoa, thanks to them as well, and continue the good work.
You're here, co-sign. And thank you again to DPW for getting the splash pad up and running this season. It's been very well used.
Every day.
Yes. By folks all across our city and our surrounding community. I speak to folks there that are coming in from Muskegon Heights or Muskegon Township or North Muskegon. So it is not only meant for our city residents, but welcoming of guests to our downtown and city as well. So thank you. Commissioner St. Clair, do you have any questions or comments, Mr. Porter? Anyone else have any questions or comments on this item? Vice Mayor Jerem.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the sentiments also, Director Van Hyde, the good work that you're doing. And, I travel a lot, and you go to different cities and you see these different splash pads, and you see the kids out there, the youth, and they can really have some type of recreational activity to go out there in this hot weather and cool off and have fun also, but play together. And while we're talking about kids, if you really look at the behavior of children and how they play together, and they're so innocent, and they don't look at age, color, none of those things. And I just really find that very, very valuable in life. And we as adults should practice that same type of behavior. But, I just thought I'd throw that in because I appreciate children and I look at them playing in this splash pad. So,
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jerem.
thank you for getting it up and running. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments at this time before we go to roll call? Nope. All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Now we can give Director Van Hyde some relief from the podium. Moving on, public hearings. Establishment of a commercial redevelopment district for 420 South Harvey, Rental and Storage, LLC, our economic development. And we have Miss Contessa Alexander joining us this evening to report out. Well, I'll wait to, wait for the motion, so we'll get a readout and then we'll have public comments. So if we can get the phone number on the scroll in as well, so we can get prepared for any phone-in public comment for this public hearing. But please.
Thank you. Hello and good evening, everyone. 420 South Harvey Rental and Storage LLC has requested a commercial redevelopment district. And with this district, this will allow for the owner to apply for a commercial facility exemption certificate, which I'll further discuss in the next agenda item. The owner is seeking the certificate for phase 1 of development, which will include a marijuana retailer, marijuana consumption lounge, restaurant and bar, and an outdoor hospitality venue. The total cost of rehabilitation will be $3 million, and it will be a creation of 100 new jobs, construction jobs, and 50 retained jobs. Under this district, the commercial facility exemption certificate encourages the replacement, the restoration and new construction of commercial property by freezing the property taxes generated from new investment for a period of up to 12 years. We also have the owner here with us today to answer any further questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff or would like to speak directly? And you can reserve questions to the next item too if you want, because this is just establishing the district, and the next one is going to be whether or not to issue a certificate. So you can always reserve your questions for the developer at that time. But do you have any questions for staff right now?
Yeah, Mr.
Commissioner
Mayor,
Ramsey.
I have just questions about how we engage the neighbors around 420, around 420 South Harvey Street, to let them know that this is a possibility within their neighborhood. Have we had any talks or chats or, what did we do, Contessa, to make sure that people know this is happening in a way that benefits them, but that go for it.
Sure, so I will do my best with that. So all of our tax abatements and incentives or grants are all located on our website. Please reach out to my email or phone number. I'd be happy to explain any of these tax abatements. And other than that, I think we will continue to support and push out these incentives to our community, hopefully by different community events.
And also from additional context background is that this property, and our planning manager, this was rezoned. This was not a special land use.
Yeah,
This was rezoned. And so notices were sent out to property owners surrounding this facility, and also has received news coverage with regard to the rezoning of it that happened last year.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
This is the next step. So just a little more context. Thank you, Mrs. Alexander. Commissioner Ramsey, did you have follow-up?
No, I don't.
Any other questions for staff, commissioners? Or Vice Mayor German?
No.
All right. This is a public hearing. So is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on the establishment of this commercial redevelopment district at 420 South Harvey? Seeing no takers in the audience, is there anyone on the phone that wishes to give comment on the
No, Mayor.
establishment of a commercial redevelopment district?
We've
Okay.
received no phone calls.
All right, commissioners, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and approve the establishment of the commercial redevelopment district at 420 South Harvey, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the resolution.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner St. Clair, supported by Commissioner Ramsey. Any further discussion, commissioners? Nope. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Next public hearing. Request for a commercial facilities exemption certificate for 420 South Harvey Rental and Storage LLC. Most people when they think of Harvey, well, maybe I shouldn't say most people, but oftentimes when you think of Harvey, you think out by the mall area. So just to let folks know some geographic context, that this is at the corner of Harvey and Marquette, near Glen Oaks and near the college campus. So just to give people an approximation of where it's located. Do you have anything else to report out on the certificate itself beyond what you've already shared?
Sure. So we do have the scoring guide that our tax abatement committee uses for all of our tax abatements, as well as the tax incentive map. So our deputy clerk and city clerk will put that up for you. So our tax abatement committee met on July 6th to score this application. And based on the scoring guide that you see on your screen, we suggested an 8-year abatement. And if you scroll a little bit further up, it'll discuss there we go, on the third column, PA 255 is the application that we're looking at. So we looked at the taxable value, the location, if it is on the tax incentive map, if it's a new business, and if it's resident owned or managed.
Commissioners, any questions with regard to our tax incentive policy and how staff scored that in their recommendation to the commission? Any other questions for staff on the issuance of the certificate?
Just a question.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Okay, yeah, Ms. Alexander. So, looking at the score guide here, the taxable value for the property or the project, did you say it was like 3 million?
So when we do the taxable value, we take the total amount of investment and divide that in half. So that number was still over $1 million. So based on the scoring matrix, it'll score 5 points for that section.
Okay. And job creation was 3, and so basically a total of 10. Which
It was, I'm sorry, what was that?
is that overall the total was 10?
It was
if I'm
8.
reading this correctly.
So we
Oh,
scored it at 8 points,
Okay, you
which
scored it
would
at 8. Okay.
correspond to
All right.
8 years.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Okay. Now, I just one other question. Now, we do have a EEOC department. When these type of scoring projects or scoring conversations are taking place, is that EEOC director involved during these processes?
Yeah, so are you talking about
Director
our
counsel.
director?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So I chair the tax abatement committee. Along with that abatement committee is Jake Eckham, Mike Franzik, and Sarah Wilson in finance, as well as Ken Grant in finance.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. Do you have questions for the developer? Would anyone like to hear from the developer on this project or questions specific to the developer? He has joined us this evening, so I want to give him the opportunity. Would you like to get up and speak?
Hear from him.
Yeah, if you could introduce yourself and your organization so folks at home can hear you as well on the mic.
Good evening. I'm Corey Roberts. Thank you all for allowing me to be here before you this evening. I'm here on the behalf of Fields Cannabis. We have trademarked our flagship location at 420 Harvey Street as Fields Cannery. We've coined that for the representation. Many are familiar with the Wine Rare Brewery, and we are looking to do that. First and foremost, we're establishing a hospitality development that has a strong cannabis component as well. I'm very grateful to the city staff for they've helped me walk through this application process. I'm completely ignorant. I've never wore a developer hat in this matter before, so I'm thankful and grateful for that. Appreciative of all the assistance the city's given us through the social equity program, and I'm just grateful again for the opportunity to be here before you today.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Mayor Sherman.
Yes, Mr. Corey. How with the social equity program that you just mentioned, how were you impacted by that social equity program that was implemented by the state of Michigan?
So the social equity program that was implemented by the state of Michigan has been a great asset to myself and my corporation. They've given us a 50% discount on all licensing and application fees. They also help expedite any requests that we may have for our application processes. Grateful to that because, again, I'm ignorant when it comes to these matters. I've never been through this process before. It's rather involved and in-depth. That's been a great assistance. The city is well establishing the social equity program and really advocating for inclusivity from its residents, those who have been marginally disproportionately affected from the war on drugs. It's great to see. I'm thankful to hear that you're putting monies into education and redevelopment of parks. I'm all for it. Thank you.
Yeah. So you're saying you were basically impacted due to the prohibition of marijuana, and somehow you benefited from the social equity program. That's basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. I was imprisoned here, sent out of the city of Muskegon for 4 years and 8 months for consumption of cannabis, never even a sales.
Yeah.
It tore my life apart. It affected my children and my family.
Yeah. It does a lot to families and separates them. And I'm just glad you have an opportunity to benefit from this initiative. And much success to you and your business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Roberts? All right. Thank you for joining this evening, and thank you to you and your partners for choosing to grow with Muskegon. All right, commissioners, I would welcome public comment. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give comment on the issuance of a commercial redevelopment certificate? No takers? Is there anyone on the phone that wishes to give public comment on the issuance of a commercial redevelopment certificate for 420 South Harvey?
No, Mayor.
Or, I'm sorry, commercial facilities exemption certificate, just to be specific.
There is not.
All right. Then, commissioners, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and approve the commercial facilities exemption certificate at 420 South Harvey and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign resolution.
Could that motion also specify the number of years, please?
Oh, yes. Inclusive of 8 years.
So moved, inclusive of 8 years.
Support.
Does that work?
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Ramsey, and I'll give the support to Commissioner Emery over there. Any final thoughts or questions before we go to roll call? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. No unfinished business, so moving on to new business. First up, we have bike path relocation at Adelaide Point coming out of our manager's office. So that we may proceed with a report out and deliberation. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the exchange of property for the relocation of the Lakeshore Trail within the Adelaide Point development and authorize the city manager to sign.
Support.
Can we change that to be signed by the mayor and clerk?
No. And authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Do I need to read it again, or
No.
can I just say that's fine? That's fine.
Thank you.
Still support.
I'll read it again just to be clear. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner St. Clair, supported by Commissioner Ramsey, to approve the exchange of property for the relocation of the Lakeshore Trail within the Adelaide Point development and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign. So our Deputy City Manager, Leanne Mikesell, welcome back. Who's reporting out on this item.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. I haven't been at this podium very much lately, so it's kind of odd to have two occasions today. So as you all are probably aware, with the planned unit development at Adelaide Point, we have always contemplated the idea of moving the bike path to make sure that we can accommodate the development. So this is the formal agenda item coming to you for that property exchange. We are still going to have a bike path on the property, and it's still going to be out by the lakeshore as it has been. It's just moving slightly to make room for the development and the buildings within that development. So there are some exhibits in the packet for you, including the deeds. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Deputy Mikesell. Commissioners, questions? I'm sorry, who made the motion? I should call on you, right, Commissioner St. Clair? So, Commissioner St. Clair, starting out.
Thank you. So, we got a pretty color-coded map at some point. Was it today?
Yeah. I think it's loading.
That made it clear what we're looking at. This is not color-coded.
Did you?
There's one that's color-coded.
There's a color coded as well.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Do you have it? Madam Clerk, you need to send it to you? Okay.
I just, yeah.
Well, while that's happening, I immediately got some pretty vigorous feedback from the community about the sharp angles on the bike path being unsafe. Can we talk about that?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there we
Yes.
go.
There we go.
And
Yeah.
looking at that, I can see that looks problematic.
Right, so that 90-degree turn over on the eastern side of the peninsula, that is going to be in an area where there's going to be quite a bit of pedestrian activity. It probably would have been helpful to show the PUD site plan as well, so you could see where the structures are going to be located. There are going to be buildings right there, and so the bike path is routed around those buildings. I'm personally not worried about this 90-degree turn because there is going to be so much pedestrian activity here that we are not going to want bikes to be going fast here. So that 90-degree turn will require them to slow down. Something else to consider is that this is meant to convey property. What you can't see on this exhibit is, like I said, that the site plan for the planned unit development shows that this area is essentially a large promenade area. So there's going to be concrete all over the place. So we have to choose a place that our property is going to be, but there will be room for the bike path to be within this overall promenade area, if that makes sense.
I think so. Pictures would have been helpful.
Yeah.
So we were going to email the clerk it, but they don't have the computer to connect. So I think
Okay.
Jonathan's going to get a flash drive so that we can save it on the flash drive and then give it to you so that we can bring it up on screen. Right?
Different than this?
Yeah,
the
there's
PUD was
the
going to show
PUD.
the PUD so you can see the
You know,
area
I
in
might-
question,
I
which is
might
going to be
have
relevant
it.
because I'm going to be asking you to amend your motion later because I discussed this during the planning commission today, and so
I probably have the PUD if I can just hook my computer up real quick here.
So green is new.
you have the
Green is new.
yeah the
Green
most
is
recent
new,
the one that was in
yellow
the planning
is
commission
current.
today. Deputy manager.
Mm-hmm.
You have the one from that came to the planning commission today.
I'm not sure. I
Just
should
bear
have the latest PUD though, so I just found the email. I think I got it. So if you give me control. This is the PUD.
Jonathan doesn't need to get that flash drive after all.
Good for him for being so quick,
So,
though.
if you look at the circle that says A1, let's see, can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
So this A1 is the path, the proposed path. So this area, there's gonna be a lot of concrete in this area. I mean, I do have the developer here if you would like him to describe it. Anyway, so A1 is the path, and you can see it coming along here, and then it turns here. But this is kind of all concrete.
Is there
Yes?
a reason?
Yes, if the wait just a second. Yeah, you have a question for staff, or you want me to? You welcome the developer. Okay.
Okay.
Mr.
So,
Leesma, if you could introduce yourself and your organization.
Ryan Leesma, Adelaide Point. So if you see here where I've got the mouse and there's this squiggly line here, that that indicates the edge of the hotel. Okay. So if I start here and I go along the edge of the hotel and I go all the way down to the right of way, and then I follow along the right of way around this bend, and I go back to here, and then all the way down to across the multi-use building, this whole area here is going to be one hard surface area. It's meant to allow everybody to come and just hang out. And so the bike path property that the city owns is going to be going through this large promenade, and there is no way that somebody coming in from either entrance to that promenade on the bike path would ever be restricted into just that 16-foot wide space. So they're really going to kind of flow through there. Now, what we had talked about was I would be happy to provide an easement, official public easement, so that anybody that comes in from the west bike path entrance or the east bike path entrance can do circles on the inside publicly and legally, which is fine because that's really what the whole purpose of it is. Just as long as someone wasn't being drunk and disorderly, then, which I think that there's something called a public nuisance, so it would be fine. That was really my only concern. But the other thing to mention is that the property conveyance is for a parcel that's 16 feet wide, right? But the bike path is only 10 feet wide, physically, the asphalt. And if you look at the old survey of the bike path, you'll notice that it makes all these weird, like, 30-degree turns this way and 30-degree turns that way. And the reason that is because surveyors can't put into a legal description big swoopy turn, right? And so they have to like pick points. Now, if you look at the old bike path survey and where it's physically at, you will notice that even in some spots, the swoop on the bike path that's there today, or, well, I guess it's not there, it's covered with the dike, but I mean, where it was, is that it actually didn't follow that perfectly. It's a very rough approximation. And so when we're putting it in to the gentleman who is concerned about the bike path, you basically put in the best turns that you can in that surveyed legal described area. And so, yeah, it'll be good.
Thank you, Mr. Leesma. Questions for the developer? Commissioner Ramsey.
Yep, I just want to highlight again because Deputy Manager Mike Sell had already mentioned it, and then Mr. Leesma highlighted it yet again, that entire triangle that you gave us to walk through with your cursor is all going to be covered in cement, but it will also be a huge spot where people on their feet will be crossing back and forth, so we're going to have slow down bike traffic anyway. So we don't see an issue for safety from the angle because of the expansion of the enhancement and expanded cement, but we do know that there could be safety issues if bikes aren't alert and slow down in the first place.
Well, I was kind of contemplating that we'd put something up on other areas of the bike path where it just, shows a bike and a person walking and maybe like, a stroller and a kid or something that indicates that you can't go hauling through there like you're on a triathlon bike.
Right, no. Well, and luckily enough, the groups that come together and convene to use our bike paths are wonderful people. And they are very cognizant of our neighbors and the wonderful amenities of this city, so they will be appreciative of this. And knowing that there's opportunity for mishap,
Well, I think everybody's,
they will go in there very cognizant.
I mean, everybody's going to slow down to buy a cheeseburger anyway.
Yeah, support.
Right, and anybody that wants to haul the mail, they can take the commuter path, right? But I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff there, and we want to encourage safe traversal through the property. And we're going to put in some bike racks so that people with really dorky bikes can, pull up and be encouraged to, go through there. I mean, we want to encourage multimodal traffic. But you won't see like, oh, here's black asphalt and then here's this great looking, architectural concrete. It's all going to be like one big open promenade, and the public will have legal access to all of it.
Yep.
So
when we make that amendment to the motion to reflect the addition of the public easement, that's what I was speaking to earlier. But also, it sounded like, I just want to confirm that we were going to be demarcating still, because you said
what?
Demarcating the bike trail that passes through that, like it's an open space. Because you said whether you're going to put a person on a bike or a stroller or whatnot, you're going to have demarcation indicators on the ground or signs identifying that as the Lakeshore Trail, our public bike path.
I mean, I can demarcate however you want. The signage isn't as important to me. It's just making sure that everybody's safe and nobody's crashing into anybody.
Indeed. And it's good point and to remind us and folks at home of that commuter path as well. So there's going to be the additional commuter, cycling commuter path to the south of there, that if folks do not want to take the scenic slower route, they can jog through the commuter route.
Do we have images or renderings of that
on here anywhere?
I think it'll also help that
Nah,
Muskegon
this
Police Department is going to have some space there. You just put up an MPD logo, safe bicycle speeds. That should get the point.
I mean, you can kind of see it here.
But it is right there above West Western, correct?
Yeah, right. Well, here's the path coming in to the property. And then it looks like there's something along here. I don't know if that's just a sidewalk.
Yeah, that's that's where it's going to be for now, until we get done. But
Right.
the commuter bike path is going to be placed over the top of the railway.
And then also around C6, which is in the Hartshorn development, there's the trail that comes around the back of this the boat storage building and then comes up Adelaide Boulevard. Yes. Yeah. So
I am an avid cyclist. You know, I mean, it's important to have it, right? So there's going to be all kinds of new cycling options and mingling places together, and you know, it'll be cool.
Yeah, I will say, just like you, Commissioner St. Clair, when I saw this last night, it gave me pause, because when we had approved the second amendment to the PUD for this, we saw those hard right angles in multiple different spots along that trail, and our community had pause and concern. We shared that concern, and that's why we had included a condition as part of approval of that PUD that be addressed. And so when I saw that last night, I was like, hold up, what? What this did bring to us shows the angles being resolved on the west end, and that being a curved path. And then I also inquired today during the Planning Commission about that path's proximity to the lake, given the high water issues and the washout and whatnot. It was shared to me that particular section had not been impacted by the high water, but nonetheless, it's going to be raised 5 feet anyhow, so it's extra protected from any future high water issues there, because that's important that we have sustainability in our infrastructure. And then it was also shared to the Planning Commission that area just to the southwest of, I think it was B1 in the PUD, or is it B3? Let me pull it up, because we're going to want to probably reference that in the amended motion. The B1. Yeah, the southwest area of B1. And that was suggested that we could do a public easement, or the developer would give the city and our community a public easement for that property there as well, in addition to our deed and our deeded property that we own. Just to give you additional context, and also my initial what when I saw this myself.
So I kind of want to point out the surveying issue. If you look at what's in front of you, you see all these arrows. Every single one of those arrows is indicating a survey point, right? And so, like, technically, it's not curved like that. You would just see all these little straight jogs that go back and forth. It's just, and if you look at other surveys that were done for the bike path previously, you don't see 25, 30 survey points for something that's 400 feet long. It's just, they just don't do surveys like that.
Yeah, you can even see the existing trail.
Yeah, well, exactly, right?
Hardened angles, even though
it's
when you see the actual trail, it's curved. If you pull up Google Maps or you're riding it, it's curved. It doesn't have those angles on the bike path itself.
It's just surveyors doing it as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Commissioner Gorman.
Is it possible, Mr. Leetsma, to get like a video rendering like we've had before from your team to show like the boat crossing, but for this area to better visualize what that turn actually looks like?
I can probably put up. I mean, I can have something put together. I guess
I mean,
I can do that, but I have $50 million of financing closing tomorrow, and this has to get approved for me to do that. So I would encourage not to have the commission say, bring us a video first, because then it would be me jumping off of a bridge.
Can I see, thank you.
That would be the only video you would get.
Can I see the PUD we looked at first? I just wanted to ask, Is the area between B4, B3, B1, that triangle, is that paved and accessible to a bike? Like
Yeah,
if you
so
needed to
that's-
go, I'm just looking at visually,
Yes.
like that could be a wider turn.
So yeah, so that's interesting. So what kind of really kicked this whole thing off is the first condo building. When they started putting it in the foundations, I looked at it and the view is terrible. I mean, if you're Joe Bailey and you like looking at rock piles, it was perfect for you. But for everyone else, it wasn't that great. And so that's why we moved it. And I spent an incredible amount of time making sure that all the angles were correct. Now, if you look at B1, which is the multi-use building, you'll notice that it's twisted a little bit and that the gap is wider between B4 and B1, and that is to make sure that the angle to Beer Can Hill is perfect. And
Which apparently for folks, because I didn't know this, this must be like a north of
It's a
Muskegon.
north-
Right. You're referring to State Park, Muskegon State
it's a
Park.
North
that hills
Muskegon.
over there.
Listen, it's
I never knew it as such. So just for folks at home and on this dais,
it's a North
know what you're
Muskegon,
talking
Kentucky
about.
thing, right? We call it Beer Can Hill. But between B1 and B4 and B3, that's also going to be a big open walking area. So what I kind of envision is that around the buildings, you're going to see a little landscaping strip with, bark or whatever and some bushes, but then it is going to be, a hard surface that people can traverse across, I mean.
So the bikers could go that way.
They could go
and
that way, yeah.
If that
I
naturally
mean-
becomes, I don't know, a way that we see
Yeah,
bicycling
I mean,
traffic.
here's the thing: is that it is against this capitalist interests to keep people away from the areas where we're going to be selling our products and services. We want people to come and mingle and linger, right? That's what we want, and the bike path is a corridor for people to come to these areas. It's big and open. I don't want people just coming on through like the Shoreline Drive thing we were talking about. We want them to come and stop and stay and spend money, right? So that area is being designed to encourage stops and to encourage people to come there. The biggest problem might be is that there's so many people that are just hanging out there and having a good time that somebody might actually have to get off of their OPA bike for a second and actually kind of walk it through because there's lots of people, So, but if it's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, I mean, they can come in on either way and they can drive right through that promenade and nobody's going to be in their way, so.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Gorman?
No, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions for the developer? Any questions? Any questions for staff on this item? Any thoughts before we? Well, first,
Motion to
would,
amend.
would you welcome a modification of your motion to reflect a condition that the promenade to the southwest of building B1 in the approved Adelaide Point PUD carries a public easement?
Yes. I would accept that motion.
Sure.
Did you get that, clerk? You might have to
Oh.
watch the video
Yeah.
later.
I will do that. Thank you.
So you're good with that, Commissioner St. Clair? Was it you that supported
was
that, Commissioner
me.
Ramsey? Are you good with that modified motion?
Yeah.
All right.
Were you going to repeat it or no? No. Okay, we will just listen. Never mind.
I will endeavor to repeat it. We have a motion by Commissioner St. Clair to approve the exchange of property for the relocation of Lakeshore Trail within the Adelaide Point development and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign with the condition that a public easement be placed on the plaza or promenade to the southwest of building B1 in the Adelaide Point approved PUD.
Okay, thank you.
So, any final thoughts or questions on this item before we go to roll call? Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
So I close at 10:30. So if those documents could be signed tonight or tomorrow morning, first thing, that would be great. Yeah.
I'll try not to linger. Take too long.
Mr. Leesman, the plan is they'll be executed tonight. I'll deliver them to Trans first thing tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. All right, next up, District Library Board appointment.
Wonderful.
So this is a carryover from our Community Relations Committee meeting last night. Well, we didn't actually end up meeting last night after our work session, but we do need to make an appointment with regard to the Hackley Public Library board appointment. And so,
The motion
Does
is
anyone-
lacking something important.
yes, so there's two candidates to choose from. The existing incumbent is Karen Evans, and there's an alternative presented. So, do you have anything to report out, Chair, CRC Chairman?
Yes, I would just
Ramsey?
I would like to share with my colleagues that historically and traditionally the board at the library has, well, I don't want to say chosen, has sent over some very strong suggestions about who they would like to see join their board, and ding ding, and so this was a little puzzling to me because there are two names here, and I am excited for both Karen and for Thomas, but I think that if we were to decide, as you've reviewed the applications through the CRC documents that were shared previously, I would absolutely take anybody's nomination for either of these people. Karen has been how do you say that eloquently? Like, how do you, Karen has been in this appointment and is very interested in staying. She has a positive track record with the library, and they're excited to have her.
Would you like to make that motion?
I would like to motion to appoint Karen Evans to the citizen position on the District Library Board, term expiring June 30th, 2027.
Support. All right, motion by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by Commissioner Hood, to appoint Karen Evans to the citizen position on the District Library Board for a term expiring June 30th, 2027. Any questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our business. Do we have our scheduled business? Do we have any other business to bring to discussion or attention right now? Mr. Manager.
Just one thing from me. So we are still looking for a date for the ARPA meeting. The original date that we had, there was a number of conflicts. So if we'll probably float out some dates from the clerk's office, so just be on the lookout for that so that we can get that scheduled.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any other business, commissioners? All right, then we're going to move on to public comments. There's a few forms here. There's still time if you want to complete a form to give public comment. First up, we have, did she leave? Virginia Taylor.
They've exited the building.
Joining us from Nelson neighborhood? Okay. I don't know if she's out in the hallway. Well, I can always call her later. Next up, we have Claudette George joining us from the Laketon Township. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
I'm Claudette George, and I believe that Shoreline Drive and safe pedestrian crossings were a concern, and that's why I wish to share my thoughts. I was in Santa Monica, California, and I was very impressed with their pedestrian crossings. I found a catalog, which I brought to today, TAPCO Safe Travels, that have things that we could utilize in our crosswalks. First off, I noticed that the current crosswalks that we have on Shoreline are just a big old white bar, period. They should really be in order to enhance it with what I'm going to suggest, we need 2 bold white cross bars that spans all across all 4 lanes of shoreline. Then in between those spans, the little crosswalks. And that way, when you're traveling on shoreline, you can see from a distance, there's some major bars there, and so, okay, we got them painted. Now we're going to be enhanced with a blinker sign, LED pedestrian crossing signs that can be solar powered as well. The crosswalks themselves would be enhanced with these lights that are embedded in the pavement on both sides of the walkway. Then there's a hawk system, is a blinking flasher with a traffic control sign that is activated by the pedestrian. So when a pedestrian comes up to the walkway and wants to cross shoreline, you would push the button which would activate, and all the lights would start blinking along the walkway and on the side of the walkway. So from a distance, you're going to see a lot of flashing lights, and that's going to right away alert the drivers that there's someone in the middle of the road. So installing these crosswalk systems at Terrace and Shoreline, 3rd Street and Shoreline, 5th Street and Shoreline, and 7th Street and Shoreline would be creating a safe crossing for all pedestrians. And I think that this is a safety approach. Like this would be much cheaper than once they were looking for a bridge over the road, they were looking for a tunnel over the road.
Thank you, Miss George.
I'm over?
That is your time.
Oh,
We appreciate
I'm
you
sorry.
joining this evening and all
I'm
your
sorry.
great suggestions. So commissioners, she did share some examples which I handed to the clerk, so she's going to make some photocopies and scan them and email them to us so that we can see the examples that Miss George has shared with us this evening. So thank you again. Next up, I saw her back. Did she leave again? Virginia Taylor? Okay, she no longer wishes to speak this evening. Okay. Next up, we have Miss Ann Vandermolen joining us from the city of Roosevelt Park. Welcome, and you have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Okay. I want to apologize to this community for having an affair with Tracy Lorenz. Because I wrote that police report, I've been bullied by this community for 9 years. I had a certain cop harass me for 8 years up until I started speaking here. He retired last year. I've been called a stalker and been shunned by people for over 9 years. Even though I'm not going to do it, I understand why people commit suicide when they're bullied in a community. I feel sorry for them. I've had it. But Tracy kind of did me a favor by calling the cops on me last fall because all of his lies about me are officially documented in those reports. I went down to Grand Haven and argued with the cop for about a half an hour. I finally asked him if he had any daughters. He said yes. And so I told him that I was speaking out against violence for his daughters too. And he got a big smile on his face and started taking down my evidence. Anyone can read those reports. I get a nasty phone call from the Grand Haven police falsely accusing me of stalking him while I go into the Muskegon police and complain about bodily harm and nothing gets done. Last fall, after we argued on the phone, he had called the cops, complained that I texted him and harassed him, and then he texted me again after he wrote the police report. And I've been afraid of DJ Hilson ever since because if you saw what was written in that police report, you'd understand. I think that if Tracy would have wanted me arrested because of who he is, they would have done that. And I'm not joking about that. And I don't think that Dancing with the Stars prosecutors and county sheriffs should be dancing and be pictured with regular people. And because I was so angry and scared after I'd been harassed for over 9 years by certain cops, and especially the one last fall, I divulged some information here last fall that I want to clear up. Yes, because I wanted an escape from my depression from losing my baby, I let Tracy film me. I apologize for that. He told me a friend of his made and sold porn, so we joked about it. I got so uncomfortable after a couple minutes that I made him turn it off. It was horrible. Then after I wrote that police report, I got psychologically disturbing, perverted texts for the next 8 years until I started speaking here. I'm not accusing Tracy of that, though. I emailed Timothy Mott some of those phone numbers 1.5 years ago. I cared about him, but he was violent with me. I don't regret writing that report. And again, Dancing with the Local Stars should not have county prosecutors and county sheriffs dance with regular people.
That is your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we have Tim Coddington joining us all the way from South Dakota.
Yes, sir.
Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
I have had them pre-recorded. I'd like to thank you all. Public service. We the people, thank you. Not that button.
My name is Tim Coddington. I went to where Americans Way Bots out in South Dakota. I'm a tourist here in this fine town of Muskegon, Michigan. The other day I had the occasion to go to Pier Marquette Beach Park, and I backed into a parking space in the parking lot down by the roundabout. Now from the deck all the way down to the parking lot, there are signs on metal posts that state no backing into parking spaces. When you enter the parking lot, there are no signs visible on metal posts anywhere that say you cannot back into parking spaces. I received a ticket. I came down to contest this ticket with the parking supervisor, and she stated that that's the code, that you can't back into parking spaces. She's been here for 38 years, and that's the way it is. I informed her that the code, L01, states that on streets with angled parking, you cannot back into parking spaces. And it doesn't have any relevance to parking lots in that code whatsoever. She said that you can't back into parking spaces because when you exit the parking space, you will be going against the flow of traffic. Although there are no directional signs in a parking lot, one-way sign, anything that state direction of travel. I stated I got a ticket, but there were cars parked right across from me in the double parking spaces that had pulled all the way through, so when they exit, they have to go against the flow of traffic. She said, no, we just can't back in along the beach. Well, if the reasons for when you exit, you're going against the flow of traffic, then it seemed like it would apply there too. So the law is being applied unequally, or the code. Poor people. Now, she said there is one sign in that parking lot down by the kite shop. You can see that sign when you get about 8 parking spaces away. It's not visible. MDOT code states that parking sign is supposed to be every 100 feet. That's not the case down there. I would like to recommend that the city spend some of that $800,000, 2% of the city's budget that they receive from parking down at the Pier Marquette Beach Park, and spend that on some new signage. And if they don't want people parking in a parking lot backing in, write a code that says that so that you can actually enforce it legally. I would also like to state that the waters at Pier Marquette Beach Park have not been tested for E. coli yet this year. The health department states that they test regularly during the high use season. I would think that the 4th of July would be a high use season, actually. Every spot was full the day I was there. It's a high use season. So in the interest of public health and promoting Muskegon in a good light, not having hazards on the beach, I think you should spend some of that $800,000 on getting more testing as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining this evening and sharing your experience and your recommendations and insights. Thank you, sir. Our staff heard that and will take it under advisement and accordingly as to what may need to change or differ going forward. So thank you. Mr. Ooh, I'm gonna go. I almost forgot. I did not forget you, Cheryl. Ms. Wittenberg, joining us, returning to speak on another topic. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
I have a question. With the preface that marijuana is federally illegal and the states have legalized it, can it be extrapolated that the city can have control over the amount of days of fireworks? At what point does noise and these fireworks become less celebrating and more disturbing to the general public who get up early to go to work, sleepy because they've been up all night with their distressed animals, and those who end up in shelters because they run away? I don't know how many of you avail yourself of the blog next door, but there were well over 130 comments on this during the 4th of July time period. 99.9% of them were all negative, in that now we are no longer celebrating our vets and our history, but now we are becoming very self-indulgent. 5 days of 12-hour days of fireworks. So now it becomes, are we trying to get the revenue captured in Michigan away from these other states? Is that more important than the health and well-being of our constituents? So the question again would be, do we have any control citywide that may curb the state law that we can do 5 days? Does anybody know that answer? Nobody thus far has had the answer to that.
This isn't a time for Q&A right this moment, but we can confer with you.
I don't want to be presumptuous.
After the meeting and get you those answers.
I mean, it doesn't have to be today. You can email me. I know you have my email. We're conversant.
Okay.
But I would just like to know.
I'm curious as well. The state law has evolved over time. I know there are limitations, and the state has minimum requirements, and there's limitations on the extent that we can do. So I'd be curious what the current law is, because it has evolved over time. So I have the same interest as you, and I know that we received several messages around the 4th of July as well.
And it's federally illegal. So, I mean, I would think that we have some sort of control over our laws here. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wittenberg. Appreciate you joining us from the NIMS neighborhood. Next up, we got Ray McLeod, or McLeod. I always want to say McLeod. I don't know why. But Mr. McLeod joining us from Norton Shores. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, I just wanted to compliment the board on that great and robust discussion you had about the road diet, phase 2 of the road diet data collection. It always amazes me how quickly people are to jump up into arms against something just to collect data. That always amazes me. And that robust discussion, Commissioner St. Clair, I give you all the credit in the world for making that discussion happen. Your blunt comment there opened it up for everybody to feel more comfortable in saying what they wanted to say, because you laid it out on the line. But here's a key point about that road diet that I believe has not been stated by the city or anybody enough yet. The speed limit signs have not changed. The speed limit signs have not changed. During the month of October, when that road diet was on, the speed limit signs did not change. So people are ticked off because the road is funneled, but the max speed is not changed. You're still allowed to travel at the same speed and get through at the same speed. And I'm one of those people who I don't drive a car anymore. I'm not able to. So I travel by bike. And granted, yes, those other streets, Webster, Muskegon, speed was greater on those. But as a bicyclist, I'll attest to this 100%. During that month, during October, I still felt safe cycling on those roads. I know they were faster. I felt that they were faster, but I still felt very safe on those as a cyclist. So I appreciate the robust conversation, and I'll tell you what, we're a small city. And if people are in a doggone hurry to get around this little tiny city, we've got an expressway, for crying out loud. This is a tiny town. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing that feedback on tonight's discussion, as well as your perspective on the planning for our bicycling infrastructure. And much appreciation to you and your partners and colleagues in the Muskegon County Bicycling Coalition as well for making our community more biker friendly and helping us with our planning, which is much appreciated, so that we can move up on that list from fourth in the state onward to first. We're going to supplant Traverse City. We're gunning for Grand Haven first, third, but we're on our way to Traverse City, surpassing Traverse City. So thank you again. Anyone else in the audience wish to give public comment? No. All right. Anyone on the phone wish to give public comment?
No, Mayor, there is not.
All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait. Did you have something under any other business, Commissioner Hood?
Yes. On parking at the beach and the stickers. Residents supposed to get 2, right?
Up till April 30th.
April 1st.
Why
or April
up
30th.
until April? That's what I don't understand.
So that was, which hopefully will change once we switch to a digital system, that we don't need to have a physical passes. But when the parking passes, and I'm going to answer this because it's predated your time. But when the paid parking system was put into effect, administratively, management wanted to incent people or encourage people to apply sooner because it was taxing on staff's time to process all of the requests and distribution and issuance of those passes. So management decided administratively to allow 2 up till April 30th to encourage people to apply sooner, and then if it's after April 30th, everyone gets 1. When we created the paid parking system, I remember, I know I advocated for 2 or more, and so when we get to a digital system, I think that's where we're able to more easily provide 2 or more on a regular basis to our residents. But that's at least that was the rationale, the original rationale, just to give you background. That doesn't mean we have to stick by that. We can choose to change, but and our current manager may have some thoughts on this topic. But that was the original rationale as to how we set that up initially.
Yeah, because it's like, a lot of people is not gonna make it here early, or they'll forget that they got to get here early. So then, when you get here to get your ticket, your second one, you got to pay for it. So we're taxing our citizens to go park at the beach. And then we were trying to let other people from other municipalities come down to park at our beach. At one time, we was trying to do it for free. But we're going to charge our residents $20 to get their other parking ticket just because they missed, they didn't get there early. I just don't agree with that. And I was in those talks, but geez, that little piece must have slipped through.
This was at the height of the pandemic too.
That's true.
There were a couple things happening.
And then,
Mr. Manager,
and we had heard that concern as well. And so one of the things that and I put in writing to staff through a directive was to really give the resident the benefit of the doubt. And because we were also having challenges, sometimes if it was a renter, the landlord would get the 2 passes, but it was intended for the resident. And so we made that clear in there as well. And so the directive right now is to give the benefit of the doubt to the resident, and to get them a pass and to note it in our system.
Okay. I was getting this complaint.
Yep.
So I hadn't went and got mine yet either. So I went down to get mine, And I got the first one, and then I said, "What about the second one?" It's $20. I said, "It's $20. I mean, I'm a resident. I can't get the second one." No, you have to pay $20. So I'm like, "Well, geez, how's that giving?" I'm just hearing it now. How is that giving the benefit of the doubt? When you know I live here and I got a wife, I worked here, I lived here, but you telling me I still got to pay the $20, which I know you're telling everybody else they got to pay the $20 too, so there is no benefit of the doubt. And maybe it just hasn't got around yet fairness to you, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, and I should clarify that the benefit of the doubt that I was trying to get across to is we were running into that problem with renters, and with in some instances a landlord came in and got those.
For the first one.
For the first one, and so. And because that policy discussion had happened about the April 30th deadline prior to my arrival, that was still in place. I do know that's something that staff has said that we would like to revisit as well. I don't know if the deputy manager has some context as she's standing at the podium, because there conversations happened prior to my arrival as well.
Well, I just came up because I have been involved since the beginning. We do have a policy. The policy does say that a resident can get 2 passes before April 30th. So the staff are just following the policy. It's certainly a policy that was approved by commission and can be modified by commission. So we can, if this is something that you want changed for next year, we can absolutely do that. The other thing I wanted to say is that we are making progress with Verizon. And so hopefully a lot of things will change for next year.
Yes, we are.
Yes, that's super exciting. I didn't know we were naming him yet, but yes,
Oh,
that's
sorry.
super exciting that we're in the queue for getting
To go in digital.
to getting an installation at our communications tower at our water filtration plant, which will enhance service along the shoreline. That then puts us in a position to activate the digital pass system that our kiosks are able to do. They'll need to be reprogrammed. It's a relatively small amount to reprogram them, but then we'll have better service there, because one of the issues that we're having even now, where you pay to get the physical pass or a slip that you then replace with the physical sticker, is that there's weak cellular service there, and when there are a lot of people, it overwhelms it, and so some of those kiosks take so long you think they're broken because they're just not working. So the enhanced cellular service is not only going to improve that connectivity, but then puts us in a position that we can connect the passes to a person's license plate. And so we could dispense with the passes altogether, thus saving staff time and making it a whole lot easier for us to say, hey, residents in the city of Muskegon, you can have multiple passes, and we'll connect them to your license plate, and we won't have these issues, and our police department won't have to deal with issuing them, and staff. So it'll save a lot of time and headache and frustration. Yeah. So that's exciting. Did we find out if we got moved up in the queue, or where we are exactly in the queue, or anything like that?
With
Verizon, yeah.
Our attorneys are working with their attorneys on the final agreements.
Okay, so it's nearly imminent. Hallelujah.
Talking to their people.
Yeah. All right, I'm excited by that.
And I don't see the chief standing back there anymore.
He is.
Oh.
He is.
Would you I know we're halfway through the summer season at this point, but would you like the chief and I to have a discussion about looking at that April 30th, removing that prior to the end of this season?
I would think so, because I think there's quite a few people.
There's a lot
I
of
know it's
people.
quite a few people that missed that date.
Okay. Let me look into that and have a discussion with the chief. And that's it. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
So, and thank you, Deputy Manager, for clarifying that there was a policy that came to us and we approved it. Wasn't just administratively, so we have the flexibility to modify that policy.
And thank us for having that flexibility to modify that policy.
Yeah. All right. We do have someone on the phone. At least we did a moment ago. Are they still on the line?
I think they are,
Okay.
yes.
So we're gonna revert back to public comment. Who's on the phone?
We have Julie Hood from Nelson Neighborhood.
Julie Hood from Nelson. Welcome, Julie.
Julie, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to agree with Ms. Wittenberg about the utter self-indulgence of people playing with bombs, aka fireworks, around the July 4th. I'd be surprised if 99% of them have explosive training or are not under the influence while detonating them. So I'm asking the city to proactively join the modern age by putting out an RFP in search for any locals who are educated to or experienced with laser light shows or drone light shows. They're really gorgeous, and with patriotic music, it would be a very clean and quiet way to do that. And so I'd like to see that. And also regarding the flower pots, I'm wondering why we can't just simply buy those, since we would very likely be wanting to use those every year for beautification. And thirdly, I'm wondering if we can have those flashing speed signs that show one's speed as they're passing it. I know that those do make me look down at my speedometer and go, oh dear, I'm 9 miles over the limit, or I'm 11 miles over the limit. I better, tap the brakes. So I'm specifically looking to see those during bike time. Again, because of their speed, which is very loud for the whole Nelson neighborhood, and I'm sure Jackson Hill and surrounding neighborhoods, especially when they've, been finishing up their night at the bars. So I don't think that would be too much to ask to put up those flashing speed signs, at least for the Bike Time Festival. And that's it. That's 3 things. Hope you will consider, especially putting out an RFP for anybody who might be interested or educated about those beautiful lights that we could replace fireworks with, because fireworks is very dirty for our city, the environment, and they're very scary to pretty much all animals. So that's my comments, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ms. Hood. All right. Now you want to follow through with your motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by Commissioner Emery to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care and be well.